Hi everyone, today we're going to put together this card from Stamp Camp using the Winterly Treetops bundle. It's such a fun bundle. It's got dies, it's got stamps, and it has paper. So it's got everything. It's a giant bundle. And I am using the fun background pine needle, and I'm using Shimmery Embossing Paste to add snow and embossing. This one has a lot going on. What you might not notice on video is that behind this initial layer of pine needles is another layer of pine needles that are ink onto the base. And how did I do that? So we're going to use the background as a mask and create that. And you can use that mask on your envelope and keep it, and I'll show you how to do that as well. And here's our inside, just another one of the birds from the paper. Before we get into the card, I do want to say that this is a kit I sent to thank you orders for my September online orders. So if you got this kit in the mail, this is how you put it together. I also want to point out this paper because it uses the same dies to cut out this sheet. Now there's other sheets in here that you have to cut out yourself or use the other side, but I cut out many of these birds, as you can see, and I really love them. And they're not hard to cut out, and you can decide to, how close you want to get. And anyway, but I wanted to give you a tip for getting more birds out of this paper, because you'll see this one here, for example, is missing his head, which is very sad. But here's a head down here missing a body. So what I do is I cut out blanks. So like here's a blank, and I just use copy paper, and I cut out a few. And then when I'm cutting out my paper, I go ahead and cut out that half bird, because sometimes you can use it on the inside of a card. I mean, this one's just a head. I don't know if I'd ever use just a head, but like sometimes it's just missing a tail, and you can put that on the edge of the inside of a card and use it. But I do want to show you this. So I cut out a blank. You can use basic white paper or some copy paper and cut it out, and then you just glue your pieces together. So this one, for example, you can tell it's not directly one sheet because the background is not designer paper. It's just white, and I've glued the head and the body together to get a full bird. And if I'm looking at it up close and I'm putting it in the camera, you can see that line there and know that it's two pieces. But when it's on a card with other things and ribbon and sparkly shimmery paste and sentiments and things like that, that's not going to show up. So use your little birds here. And sometimes you're just missing a tail, like this guy is missing some berries and a tail. So you can say this guy's missing his whole friend. You could put those two together. Or here's just a tail that would finish off this guy. And this one's just missing a little bit of his tummy. You can use this one up here. So that's what I do. And everybody who got one of these kits, you got a full bird from the middle. I save these little half birds for myself so that, if you get one in the mail from me, you're getting a whole bird. Okay, anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I think it's a fun way to save your stuff. Okay, now on our card that we're gonna make together, this was not my idea to use this as a stencil. It was Stampin' Up's. We had a demonstrator creativity event. I think they call it Creativity Now, and we made this card, and they told us to save the area here and not to throw it away when we were done with this card, because then later they were going to show us how to make another card. So that's what we did. We kept it, and then we made this one. So you can see that there's no paper pine needles here. This is ink, and we used it as a stencil. So that was really fun. So I'm kind of combining that here on this card, and we will make that together. Okay, so if you got this kit in the mail, here's what it comes like. If you didn't, I will give you measurements. Don't worry about it. Okay, so your card base is crumb cake. And then I cut in your kit a piece of shaded spruce at 5 1/4 by 4. And I already die cut it because some of you don't have die cut machines. And I wanted to make sure you could make this. So it's die cut. You might have to, get it out of the frame a little bit carefully so you don't pull any of those needles off. And this is your stencil. So hang on to both pieces. All right, but I'll set them aside. And then you've got this piece of designer paper. It's from the same paper pack, the Nests of Winter, or Winter Nests. Let me check that. Nests of Winter paper pack. So that's the same kit and you'll have this, and this is cut at 4 by 5, and the same size as this, but I trimmed it just slightly smaller. Like I just shaved it basically a little bit smaller so that you can layer these on top of each other and it wouldn't show through. But if when you're laying and it shows through, you can cut off any bits that are showing. Okay, so that's this one. You'll also have a piece of cherry cobbler, and this is 3/4 of an inch by about 4. Yep. And then this was just a scrap. When I cut all of these pieces out, I end up with these little strips, so I cut some down so they would fit on your card on the inside, just for added fun. And then rather than, like I said, this is a kit that I'm sending out, so I didn't want to send out stamped images. I sent out paper cutout, so the coloring is done because we actually have quite a few steps here, and so for Stamp Camp 2 I didn't want to have the card have so many steps, so we're using the actual paper as our bird images, even though there are stamp images for this one as well. But sometimes it's nice to just use that paper. Such perfect coloring job, right? Okay, so here's how the card goes together. You're going to use this as your mask. This will be step 1, and you're going to take a glue dot and stick it on the back. Where are my glue dots? All right, and we're going to center our mask right there in the middle of our card. Okay, and don't worry if you peel, when you peel that back off, if you accidentally lose a little bit of paper there, our sentiment's going to cover it, so it's not a big deal. All right, then we're going to use a blending brush. Now, if you don't have a blending brush, you can use a sponge or different techniques. And if you don't have shaded spruce, choose a coordinating green that you think would look nice. All right, now we're going to go ahead and brush. So you see how I put the ink on in a circular fashion. I'm going to start on my shaded spruce and kind of go towards, I don't want to go this way because see how this is flappy. I want to stick this way from the center outward and really get those pine needles dark. And you can go all the way to the edge. You don't have to keep that nice and clean because you're not going to see it anyway. And work your way around. Okay, so we've got our pine needles. Okay, so I'm going to just carefully get that glue dotted piece up. There. Okay. I didn't tear mine, but if you did, it's okay. All right, so save this because we're going to use this again on the inside, and you can use it on your envelope and add fun pine needles. So isn't that fun? And you can use that just like that. I mean, you wouldn't have to do any more, but we are going to do more because I like to do more. So I'm using these strips because I think they're super handy for frames. If you don't have these strips, you can use your traditional dimensionals. You might have to cut them a little bit to make them skinnier. All right, so I'm going to use these on my frame, but first I want to embellish this piece even more. Of course I do, right? So I'm using, this is Shimmery Embossing Paste. Really fun. And I'm going to apply it with a palette knife. The palette knife they're just plastic little palette knives, and they come in a 3-pack, super inexpensive, but super useful. So let me get that out. Okay, I'm getting out this little silicone craft sheet. I think these are nice to have if you don't have one. And again, here's one of the plastic palette knives. Now, the Shimmery Embossing Paste, this stuff dries really fast. So at Stamp Camp, I told people, don't just open it and pass it around the table for a while. You want to, oh, is this a closed one? Is this a new one? No, this is a used one. Okay. You want to close it right away because, like I said, it dries out really fast. So get yourself a scoop and close it. Okay, so you've got it, it's like frosting, and then you're just going to kind of frost your pine boughs a little bit and move it around on the tips of your little branches. like this. And if you have to get some more, that's okay. Now, you can take this and scrape and use some more. And then it's going to dry, and it's going to dry hard, so don't worry about it. You're going to be able to put this in your envelope pretty quickly. All right, so we're going to set that aside while it dries, and we'll work on the rest of our card. Okay. If you were using an actual real stencil that you, like we were using something we were going to keep, but if you were using a stencil and you didn't want it to get gloopy, you'd have to clean it right away. And this is going to dry on, like I said, like cement practically, but it's plastic, so you can scrape it off. But if you don't want to have to scrape it off, go clean this immediately. Okay, so we're going to work on the rest while that is drying. So let's do the inside. I've got this piece of basic white, and I'm going to glue that down, but I wanted to add some of these little pine boughs. So let's do that. How do I want to add them? Maybe just a couple. I'm not sure how I want to do this because this is an idea that just popped into my head. We did our envelopes at Stamp Camp, but we didn't do the inside. So I'm going to just do a couple in the corner, I think. I like to leave some areas for signatures, so I don't want to go crazy. So I'm just going to do this little area right there. Okay, and then we're going to add that little strip of paper. Here it is, right there. I did get a little shadow there. Okay. And then I have a bird for you to put on the inside. Oh, it covers all the little branches. That's okay, I'll make it cover my shadow. And then you can still see a couple little leaves from the background there. So you could do more leaves if you want more to show. Maybe you can have some coming off the top, that would be fun. All right, so that's our inside, and you can add a sentiment to the inside if you wish. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and add our background. Okay, and let's do our sentiment. So if you get this kit and you don't have a sentiment piece, or I mean you have a embossing at home, that's okay. Put whatever sentiment you want on there. Like I said, this doesn't have to be a Christmassy card, so you can make this a thank you card or whatever you have on hand. I'm going to use a stamp from the set that says, "A friend like you brings me happiness," and I think that's really sweet. So I'm going to actually, you know, I already have one like that because we did that one at Stamp Camp. So I think I'm going to do thinking of you always. Mix it up a little bit. So and how we did it at Stamp Camp is we Versamarked, and the sentiment is going to be on the right side going left. You could do it the opposite. So, but I'm starting over here, so I'm using my words towards the right hand side. Did I get it straight? Okay, and then I'm going to use gold embossing powder, and my embossing tray for my powder is currently filled with white for a different project. So I'm just going to use a scrap paper. And let's heat this up. Okay, now I bet our frame is dry and we can go ahead and put it down. So I'm going to use, like I said, these little strips. And you're going to go all the way around the edge. And it takes 2 strips. And you noticed I cut off a little bit because it's a little too long, but keep that little bit because we could use it to stick our bird down. Now, here's the tricky part. So you want to make sure that you're not lining it up exactly as you had it, because see how if I put this down, it covers these. We don't want that. So you have to flip it so that it's the opposite, and that way you can see the ones underneath and the ones on top. And that is the trick. So now I can see both layers. Okay, and then remember we had those little pieces left over. Go ahead and use those to stick down your sentiment or the birds. Now I will say that these adhesive strips are not the same height as dimensionals. They're just not. They're a slightly bit taller. So actually, move that over a little bit. So if you use those little strips, that's actually good to keep those little scraps because you can add them here so that they're the same height. Do you know what I mean? And then for when I'm adding my birds that are in the, I'm going to cut some from here also so that I have them at the same height. All right, now when I put these down, you might have to cut a couple of your little berries off because we want to make sure we're not covering the words to our sentiment. So you're going to place this down and see how that berry would cover the thinking of you. You could go higher, but I want it right on there, so I'm going to actually cut off these berries. There, nobody knew they were there. And there you go. Stick it right on there. Covering my H. Let me move it just slightly. Okay, there we go. My card is complete. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm going to keep these little berries. You can always actually have them sticking out the bottom. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, or I can put them in here. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, anyway. It's fun to keep all my little scraps of paper. So here's the card. I hope that you like it. Remember to save your mask. You can add some more pine needles to your envelope and keep it for future references. I usually just keep all my little extra pieces inside of the bag with my other things, or you can keep it in here with the die cuts, and that way you know you have it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you had fun.